Hello everyone, this is Gail from Gail's Upstairs Studio. I hope you're all doing well. In a recent video, I showed you a reset and spring cleaning of my studio and showed you how I've reorganized several things and how I've reset my studio for the season. But I also have been working on another organizational project, reset if you will, of my watercolor. How I store them, how I organize them, and how I use them really. Been doing watercolor for about 5 years. And I should say I've been learning watercolor for about 5 years. And I'm probably going to be learning it for the rest of my days because I love it. It is a medium that never gets old because it's never the same. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. And in that time, I have accumulated 7 brands of professional watercolor. Not the full range of every brand or anything, but I do have a selection of colors from those brands. I have Da Vinci, Mission Gold, Daniel Smith, My Mary Blue, Winsor & Newton, Core, and M. Graham. And I love them all. Some of them are different than others, but I have really enjoyed learning of all of those. But I have gotten to the point now where I've kind of honed in what I really like and how I really want to use watercolor in the future. And I really have been trying to work in color stories for a while. And then a couple of months ago, I bought this book, and I'm not going to do a flip through today because I've done that in another video. But it's called The Color Harmony for Artists by Anna Victoria Calderon, and it is filled with beautiful inspiration palettes. And honestly, I can sit on my couch and look at maybe 2 of these pages through a whole cup of coffee. It's just very inspiring to me. And that got me really galvanized of trying to figure out the best way to build some color stories. I also have these color cues by Sarah Renee Clark. And if you watch YouTube at all, you have seen these everywhere. A lot of content creators have them. I've had mine for quite a long time. And it's just a card file, 2 card files of color palettes. And I use these a lot and I really enjoy them. And so I have been kind of building stories and enjoying that. But I had one challenge, and that was my watercolors are stored by brand in tins. So I would go through my swatch book and find colors from different brands that I wanted, and then I would have to go through all the tins and collect all the colors, and that was a lot of setup time. And sometimes by the time I got a chance to sit down and paint, I was kind of over it. So I was trying to figure out a way to better organize my watercolors for this. And the first thing I did was to realize that instead of using my color swatch book, it might be nice to have separate cards for every paint. So I have this card file here, and I cut down some watercolor paper and I went to swatching out every professional watercolor that I have. And each one has the color name, the brand name, the pigment information, and the light fast information on it. And I organize these by color, not by brand, so that if I'm building a color story, I can pull these out, set them side by side, put them up against each other, and really make an informed decision about what I want to use. So that was the first step. And that actually took me a long way to making this a lot easier of a process. The next issue was how I was storing my paints. As I said, I stored them in tins per brand. And these are all the tins. I had Da Vinci in here and Core in these two. I had Mission Gold in this one and Daniel Smith in another. And I have a couple of palettes that aren't done with half pans. I have a studio palette that has my Da Vinci range in it as well. And I have a wooden palette that has my M-gram in it. And those aren't half pans, they're just poured into wells. So then I had to decide how I was going to handle that. So I went through and found all of my half pans and took them out and made a list of what I didn't have half pans in. And so I went through and I got all of my tubes out and poured half pans for what didn't have half pans. And I labeled them all. I labeled them the brand, the color, and a number. And the number corresponds with a number on this card, and it also corresponds with the location in the box. But then what to put them in, I didn't know what to do with that, and I found a video by Helen Cryer, who is a art YouTube creator. She has an extensive watercolor collection, and she basically has done the same thing that I was trying to do but couldn't figure out all the ins and outs of it. She separated hers by brand, separated hers by color, and took 3 empty colored pencil tins and used that. And I happen to have an empty watercolor pencil tin because I keep my watercolor pencils in a roll. So that was my answer. So then I had to count up how many colors I had and would they fit, and I was able to fit them all in one. And here it is. I spray painted it with appliance black spray paint and let it cure for several days. And at the same time, my half pans were all drying, the ones that I had to pour. And here we are. They fit perfectly in here. So I thank her very much because I didn't have a clue how I was going to do this, but this makes total sense. Now each half pan is adhered to a magnet. I'm going to pick this one out. It's adhered to a magnet on the back, and it just fits right in there like that. I will not be using this the way I use my other palettes. My other palettes, I use them by using them right out of the palette. I'll use my brush and take the colors out, but this is basically my library. This is where I'm going to store all of the paints that I'm going to be making color stories out of. I have this butcher tray that is also metal, that when I am building a color story, I will come in and I will pick my color and pluck it out and put it on my butcher tray. And I usually tend toward either five to 8 colors, and see it stays nicely on the butcher tray, and I can make my pools of paint over here. And I've done it a couple times and it works wonderful. Now, this is kind of silly, but it is kind of hard to pluck them out with your fingers, so I was trying to figure out a better way to do that. These are sugar cube tongs that have been in my kitchen drawer for the entirety of my marriage and have never been used. So I decided to give it a whirl, and it actually is exactly what the doctor ordered. I can pick up my half pan and just pluck it right where it belongs. And I have done a swatch card of every color, and that was another idea I got from the Helen Cryer video, is she was able to fit all the information by writing it right over the color, which I don't generally do because some colors are darker than others and you can't see the writing well. But never thought of this, and I don't know why. She did it and it was brilliant. Over the dark colors, she used a white pen. I don't know why that was such a big deal to me. I hadn't thought of it. I don't know why. So I've done that, and so I have all the information of where to find these colors right on the cover. and I laminated it so it'll stay nice and clean. And this is what we have. And this took me, between swatching out, figuring this all out, and doing the swatch card and all these things, this took me a couple of weeks because I'm quite busy otherwise, and any extra minute I had, I'd be working on this. And honestly, it was a very good project for me to do. It got me to know my colors better, and I've gotten to the point that I have enough colors that I forget what I have, and this puts it all right in front of me. And there is a couple of brands that I forgot how much I liked, like Mission Gold. I haven't used my Mission Gold set for quite a long time, and I am so happy to have done this project for that alone, just remembering how vibrant and beautiful those colors are. So this is my master palette. There is one thing I probably am going to add, and I have room because I can shift these all up a little bit. I have some Daniel Smith watercolor sticks, pigment sticks, that I don't have in half pans, and you can cut the sticks down and put them in half pans. And there's a couple of really beautiful ones like quinacridone coral and a burnt orange color that I only have in stick that lend very well to some of the color stories that I'm building. So I'm probably going to do another row in here, and I can do that by shifting up a little bit. You cut the stick down and it fits right in a half pan, so it works out perfect. So for that last week or so, I've been able to get to the fun part. I'm going to move this to the side. I decorated the box, first of all, with acrylic paint pens. It came out perfect for what I need it for. I was able to start building color stories, and I used the color cubes, the book that I showed you, paintings that I've done in the past, things like that, for inspiration for building color stories. And what I decided to do is I had a half of a sheet left of Arches watercolor paper. That I have several sheets, but I had one that was partial. So I thought I would cut that down and make an accordion. And this is what we have. I'm gonna unfurl it, but it's not gonna all go in shot, so I'll show you a little bit of what I've done. I've done a lot of play. They're not all set up the same, but it's accordion, so I could lay it flat. But I have a warm floral. This is a warm floral color palette, and this is the colors in the palette. And on this particular page, I did each color with a touch of neutral tint, because I have neutral tint built into this palette, and that's what that looks like. I have mixes between dioxazine purple and quinacridone magenta, and what that looks like and what it looks like diluted, and mixes between azo green and Denise's green and everything in between there, and a little example of what I can get out of it. And then I have Country Summer, and I'll show you what inspired that. This particular palette here, she has it as Rustic Farmhouse, but when I look at that, I can almost hear summer insects and lawnmowers and farm equipment and things like that. And so to me, it's more of a summer color story, and it was very inspiring. And sunflowers, as everyone knows that watches this channel, is one of my favorite things to paint, so that's what I chose to use as an example. But this is all the colors, and I've written the colors out, and this is each color with a touch of neutral tint, which is also built into, I built this into this palette because I wanted to be able to bend browns and things like that. So that's what that looks like, and I actually love this. And this is some more mixing between colors. And as I said, this is my example. And I really love the way that came out. And then we have what I call bright and fresh. And here's the colors. And in this one, I mixed everything with nickel azo yellow for an example. And then this one, everything is mixed with buff titanium. And there is my example of those. This last one I haven't finished yet, but this is kind of like an into the woods and nature, things like that. But these are the colors, and these are mixed with ivory black. But then I took all of them and did a very light wash of them, and it completely changes everything, as you can see. Those in this particular formation look like Easter colors, so that's good to know. So this is my color storybook so far, and the nicest thing about it is it's just watercolor paper in a big sheet. It's right here, and you can't see because I used white tape, but this is actually 2 pieces that I taped here, and I can make as many as I want. And it took me 20 minutes to cut it down and put it together. And I have, once we go all the way to the end here, this is the end page, I can do many more color stories on the back. So this was just a quick solution, but I actually think it's kind of elegant. I like it that way. So from now on, this will be sitting on my workbench. I am going to keep all of these because if I'm working on a collection of paintings, for instance, or something for craft fair, and I'm going to be needing one color story for a lot of different things, I will put all those things in one of these palettes so that I have everything I need. Or if I'm building a travel palette, I've got a bunch of small boxes too. But in the meantime, they will live in this box, and I think that it's going to work very well for me. I'm going to give one more quick note about this. Through doing this, I decided to leave some of my brands separate for specific reasons. I have shown you this palette several times. I bought this separately. This was a Christy Rice empty watercolor palette because this is my Mungio 48 set, and I bought this several years ago, and the box came very damaged, and I used this so much, and I still use it in my sketchbooks and things. It's not quite as high of a professional brand. I don't think there's any light fast information. I can't remember, but I use this mostly for sketchbooks. And so I decided to leave these out of my master palette. And I love just working with these by themselves quite often. And this is a Paul Rubens set that I've had for about a year. And I love the colors in it, but this is a professional brand too, but it is kind of the lower end of the professional brand. About everything in here I have in my professional brands as well. So I left these out, and I have a person that comes and paints with me that uses these quite often. So I'm going to keep it, but it's not going in the master palette. And these 2 sets are for a different reason. This is my Rosa Gallery set, and it was the Romantics collection. And I've done a lot of paintings with this set, and I love it. And this is my Karataki Gansai Tambi Art Nouveau collection. And I use this quite a bit as well. But the reason why I'm not putting them in the master palette, first of all, I wanted to keep it to one box, let's be serious. But second of all, these two sets build a beautiful, comprehensive color story on their own. They don't need help from anything else. So I think it is appropriate to leave them separate. I've done many paintings with this, and I've started doing a couple of collections with this one, and they really do. They don't need any help. They build cohesive stories all on their own. Well, I know this is a little bit of a different video, but I hope somebody got some use out of it. I really enjoyed this process. It was long and arduous, but it was informational to me, and the more I got into doing it, the more I knew I was doing the right thing. And it's not for everybody. People like to work with specific brands together. They don't like to mix brands, and that's valid. That's absolutely fine. But I love the fact that a yellow ochre from Daniel Smith looks different than a yellow ochre from Da Vinci, and you can use both of them in different ways, and being able to access everything and see everything side by side really helps me. And if you're hitting stumbling blocks with creativity of anything that you do, maybe try to change it up, change the way you organize it, change the way you use it, change the surface you use it on. Even sometimes is enough to get you out of a rut and get you started on a fresh path. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed making it, and I'll see you next time.